Good afternoon. Welcome to Delaware's first ever Facebook Live Town Hall. It was a critical part of our campaign, and now, as we're leading the county, to include everyone, all citizens, in how we govern our county. That's why we wanted to use this new medium to invite all of you to participate, asking questions directly of me and my team, and also contributing your ideas about how we can create value for taxpayers and solve some of our most pressing problems. Before I begin, I wanted to make three quick announcements. The first thing is we are doing a dramatic revision of our website. We want our website, our Newcastle County website at nccde.org, to be more responsive to you, more interactive, and be really something that includes leading technologies to serve you better. We're encouraging all of you to go to nccde.org/web-survey, WEBSURVEY, and fill out a survey so we can hear directly from you. We will post that link in the Facebook Live feed so that you can see it and click on it. Second, today we announced a decision regarding agricultural preservation that this fiscal year will save taxpayers about $2.5 million. We hope through collaborating with the state's existing agricultural preservation program, we can preserve more land for less. What we've done is we've announced a contribution of $500,000 to the state program. The state program has been an award-winning program that's existed for over a decade that unfortunately, because of pricing problems, does not always preserve as much of Newcastle County's land as we'd like. By contributing this additional $500,000, we save off a $3 million allocation by only spending $500,000, and working with the state, we expect to preserve several farms. That increases the preserved farmland, decreases things like sprawl and development, and does so in a way that's efficient and affordable to you and me, the county taxpayers. Finally, I just wanted to say one quick thing before we get to the questions, and that is that there are safety concerns in our community. We're very aware of that, and as your county executive, we're monitoring the situation nearly every minute of every day. We have additional police patrols going out in certain areas. We are in collaboration with the state police as well as municipal police departments throughout the county to try to find this kidnapper who has, on 3 occasions done things that were harmful to our residents. I want you to know we're vigilant and we're out there trying to make our county safer for you. I also want to emphasize that very often these cases are solved by individuals like you, by you being vigilant, by you using your eyes and your ears, and of course by you, when you're going out during the evening, using extra precautions to make sure that everyone in our county is safe each and every day. Thank you. Oh, I also want to mention, if anything happens, if you have any information, there is a reward being offered of up to $20,000 for information leading to an arrest and conviction of the perpetrator of this violence. And if you see anything in an emergency situation, I want you to call 911 and let us know right away. Thank you. Let me take one quick question that was asked of me. Actually, I'll take 2 questions that was asked of me before this event, and then I'll go to one of your questions online. First question from someone named David Cartier. David Carter. He asked me about agricultural preservation. And as I explained earlier, today we are announcing a collaboration with the statewide agricultural preservation program that we believe will provide savings of at least $2.5 million to county taxpayers. Second, someone named Jill Argue, sorry about butchering your name, asked, how is the administration pursuing Matt's promise to increase transparency? How is the administration pursuing Matt's promise to increase transparency? Transparency is extraordinarily important, and we believe there is a lot more we can do. As I said during the campaign, immediately upon coming into office, we did a full and exhaustive review of our ethics, programs and policies, as well as restrictions on the county executive. And we're trying to figure out how to make the governance of our county, our local governments, honest and transparent as any local government around the country. Very shortly, we will be releasing a series of proposed ordinances to improve transparency in the county. In addition, we're looking very hard at how we can use our website, as I mentioned earlier, to increase transparency so that you have direct access on your time to the information you need to know as a concerned citizen of New Castle County. Why don't I go ahead? There's a few other questions. Dawn Alvord, Chuck Norris Jr., and First State Update. I'll get to them in a minute, but first I want to take some questions from people who are out there in the audience. Tom McPherson asked, how long will the hiring freeze remain in place? When I came into office, we did an immediate review of our finances to see where we are. What we found was that this fiscal year, 2017, we're running a $5.2 million deficit. That means we're spending more than we're taking in as revenue. Next year, we're projected to have a $12.9 million deficit. That means we're spending much more than we're receiving. The following year, we're projected to have a deficit of over $20 million, which means we're spending way more than we're projected to bring in as revenue. I immediately took 5 steps to address that deficit. The first step was a hiring freeze. An additional step was freezing overtime, except for overtime that affected public safety. I restricted out-of-state travel and attending conferences for all county employees. I ended a practice of county employees, or I suspended a practice of county employees buying back vacation time. And I also immediately reduced over $100,000 of spending in my own office. The question is, how long will the hiring freeze remain in place? It will remain in place until we feel like we're in a position where we're not spending more than we're taking in. Keep in mind that we are making exceptions to the hiring freeze. If, for example, there is someone in collections who's helping us to increase revenues and increase tax collections, or doing something that makes our government more efficient, often, as anyone who ran a business or ran a home knows, it makes sense to spend a little money to bridge that deficit. It actually reduces the deficit sometimes by hiring. So while it's a hiring freeze, we are making exceptions. Let me take another question. Charles Norris Jr., Mr. Norris asked, property taxes, when are you going to announce that New Castle County residents will, quote, likely be paying more? My promise to you is that we will not deliver a budget situation and a government to you that I felt like I saw when I came in. I don't want my successor to have a $5 million deficit the first day he comes in. I don't want my successor to be looking at a $12.9 million deficit in future years and a $20 million deficit. So what we're trying to do now is make our government more efficient. As I mentioned, in the first weeks of governing, we found $100,000 in savings just in my office here. In the people who work immediately for me, we found $100,000 in savings that delivers a more efficient government to the taxpayers. Taxpayers don't even notice the cuts. The services remain the same. So before we even talk about any tax increase or any revenue generation, we're looking hard at that. How do we deliver an efficient government to you? Let me take next question. Chris McCartan asked, what steps are being taken to collect the $5 million of taxpayer money loaned to the city of Wilmington during the Gordon years, the stock exchange? The Delaware Board of Trade was started to create a stock exchange. It's a private company, and money was invested initially from something called the Garstin Trust. This is going back almost 2 years ago. The Garstin Trust is a fund for our parks. The Garstin Trust is a fund for our parks around the county. Thanks to the generosity of the Garstin family, we have additional resources for our parks. The prior county executive decided to take $3 million and invest it in a private business in Wilmington, a stock exchange owned by a company called the Delaware Board of Trade. There were promises made, not contractually, not written promises, but there were promises made publicly to open the stock exchange almost 1 year ago. That's $3 million promised to open almost 1 year ago. When there was an uproar, I should say, to date, the stock exchange has not opened. To date, the stock exchange has not opened. In addition, there was an uproar over removing money from the Garston Trust. So my predecessor took $3 million out of reserves, out of the county's cash savings, and replaced the money in the Garston Trust. So effectively, we, the taxpayer, have $3 million less money, and we're now an investor in the Delaware Board of Trade. We are looking intensively at this deal. I believe it is inappropriate to spend taxpayer money in that way. An outside law firm that looked at the process called the entire process unlawful. There have been very few, if any, jobs created to date through the Delaware Board of Trade, and I promise you, we will do everything possible to turn this into a situation that benefits the taxpayers of New Castle County. It's not acceptable for me or anyone in government to take millions of dollars of taxpayer money and spend it in that way. Let me take another question that came in before we started from Dawn Alvord. Dawn Alvord asked, how do you plan to attract STEM employers to our county? How do you plan to attract STEM employers to our county? STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. It's a great question. I'm a math teacher. I love the question, but I need to add one thing. Steve Jobs, who I think was probably one of the greatest STEM job creators in the history of our country, actually was not a technologist. He knew calligraphy. He even admittedly was more of an artistic mind than an engineering mind. STEM jobs are important. STEAM jobs are more important. We need to put the A into STEM and include artists in our plans and projects to create real technology jobs for the 21st century. A few things about how we're going to attract STEAM employers. The first thing is, there's been a lot of effort and resources spent in our state to attract employers here. And I think that's important, and I think we should continue to do that. More importantly is asking the question, how do we train our leaders of tomorrow to create STEAM jobs right here? Those who are growing up today. How do we take those who already live here, who have STEAM backgrounds, who are engineers, who are artists, who are designers, graphic designers? How do we get them to come together to create jobs here? And so we're working first and foremost on how do we incentivize and inspire those who are here to stay here and create jobs here. Those who are already creating jobs, how do we incentivize them and work with them to increase their customer base, to create even more jobs? How do we remove the barriers for them creating more jobs? In my transition several months ago, we actually, for the first time in the county's history, I think for the first time in the state's history, we had a committee on entrepreneurship and innovation. I encourage you to go to ncc2017.com and look at their proposals, what they proposed to us. We're taking their report very seriously. We're looking at each of the things they recommended, and they're including potential tax abatements, property tax abatements for certain STEAM employers. Greg Sachs asked, how will you combat the president's attack on the environment? How will you combat the president's attack on the environment? People that know me know I'm an avid bike rider and hiker. I used to get a backpack and go off the grid for a couple weeks every year. And I actually was a bike commuter for 4 years. So it's vitally important that we do everything we can to save the environment. Jobs come and go, companies come and go, revenues and expenses come and go. But once you cut down a tree or destroy a green space that we were handed at birth, it often can never come back. We are doing everything we can to expand and invest in our 245 parks that already exist. Open space is vitally important to me. I have asked those that work on parks to put together a plan, a map of our county, to look at where the open space and parks are and think about how we can do more to expand those parks and also create non-car linkages between the existing parks. Another question from First State Update. What are your thoughts on the $350 million state budget shortfall? How will it affect NCC? Do you think Carney's plans to raise taxes is the right approach? The state is facing a shortfall. Our county is facing a shortfall. The city of Wilmington, is looking at a shortfall. There are a lot of governments within our state that are facing hard times. We have to recognize that at the core of those problems is our inability to create high revenue jobs. Some of that is just the times we're in, but a lot of it is not the times we're in. When you look around the country, there are certain regions, the Research Triangle down in North Carolina, Austin, Texas, Pittsburgh, the area around Denver, Colorado, Seattle, to some extent Boston, where they're tremendous job creating engines for the jobs of 2017 and beyond. That's what we need to do. And the way we create those jobs is through talent, through developing our talent. That brings investment. And that, as a long-term issue, will solve many of the government fiscal problems we're facing today. Ruth Marie Bertrand asked, how about we legalize cannabis here in Delaware to get jobs and revenue? Ruth Marie, that's an excellent question. It's primarily a state issue right now. We here in the county are pledging to do everything we can to work with the existing medical marijuana bill and do what we can to incentivize businesses in that regard. Here in the county itself, we don't have any plans to legalize marijuana at this time. We should note that there are, in addition to the legalization of the drug as a consumption drug, cannabis itself develops a number of, is a resource for a number of hemp products that are very valuable in making all sorts of consumer products that could be valuable in other ways. Next question. Okay, do I have time for one more?
Yeah.
One more. Do you have it? Daniel Sheridan is asking, is there, what does that say? Daniel Sheridan is there anything we can do to incentivize the movie industry to come into Newcastle County? You know, when I was a kid here, a number of my friends were in Dead Poets Society. Raise your hand if you saw Dead Poet. Oh, I can't see them? Not yet, huh? I guess I can't see you guys. But Dead Poets Society was a great film by the late, great Robin Williams. And the film industry is a wonderful way for us to generate, to create jobs and generate value for county taxpayers. It's certainly something I'll have our economic development director look at. And hearing from you in this Facebook town hall is one of the reasons we hold town halls like this, so you can contribute great ideas. I think there's a lot of attention in democracy placed on election day and who we choose as our leaders. There's not enough attention placed on the feedback mechanism where I can hear from you, hear your ideas, and hear what you think we should do to move our county forward. I want to thank each and every one of you for participating in this first ever Delaware Facebook Live Town Hall. We look forward to seeing you again, either around the county, in one of our beautiful parks and libraries, or right here on social media. Thank you, and have a good evening.